Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the MaxBet podcast, a podcast dedicated to gaming.
We're your hosts. I'm here with Landon Michael Jones, and I'm Mike McKiskey. Let's get started.
Let's roll. What's up, man?
Oh, not much, dude. Got back from London, feeling
That's
good.
probably really loud in your car if you're listening.
Landon just screaming into the microphone.
We did just get back from London.
That's pretty cool.
Across the pond, they say.
They do say
And
that.
for us, across all of North America as well. So
That's it. That's it.
And a lot of
Everybody
lakes,
the pond.
rivers.
Yeah, lakes, ponds, rivers, water features
People.
of all sorts. That was a fun trip, though.
yeah,
I think it was illuminating in many ways.
it was illuminating
Right, like-
in many ways.
I think you look at just the industry stuff. You
Yep.
look at our specific business, right? Learned a lot about, right?
Oh, yeah.
I feel like that. And the cultural, so we got to do some sightseeing, which was pretty cool. So you go, wow, just all of it was like, man, I feel like my eyes are just opening every day to not always fun things. Sometimes like just weirdness or like, some of the old school history of that country was interesting, but yeah, it was fun, man. Fun trip. Good
It's
to be back.
Crazy to see the size and scope of the gaming industry when you go to ICE.
Sure.
Because we sit here and we're like, what? But did you do 15 times? I know everything about it. I know all the companies and all the games.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do. You know a little bit about a little bit.
At what point did you know that you were just completely pickled going to ICE? Meaning, like you knew you were going to go. Oh, I don't know anything. Like at what point walk it in? Like
Pickled's a funny word. Yeah, I've felt pickled before I went to ICE, but when we got to the show, I was thinking like I would see more EGM product.
Sure.
I was curious to see like how big it was because before we signed up for ICE, I thought that G2E was the mecca.
Sure.
And then people started saying, no, ICE is much bigger. And so in my mind going over, I was like, how is that possible?
We'll see about that.
We'll see about that. And then when you walk in, you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
And I said whoa before I realized that there was a whole nother side that had the same whoa.
Yeah, right.
But just realizing that even L&W, we're a small player over there, right? We were a very small booth there. I mean, we're a big player in Europe and other gaming jurisdictions, but just the size and scope of the online gaming companies, the sports betting company. I mean, there's so much happening in Europe and in other continents that is not just EGM.
For sure.
based.
I think it was really interesting. Like I knew, like that's what I was asking because I knew walking in that I was going to learn a lot because all the big marquee sponsorship positions, right? So when you like walk in, you get off the tube and then you like there's that whole moving walkway and all the banners. I'd never heard of the companies. So I'm like, oh, like you clearly are big enough to warrant advertising at what I would assume is like the most premium level of sponsorship. And I don't even know who you are. So like that's how I knew it was in a different world. Because normally you go, okay, you walk into a trade show, it's gonna be Light and Wonder, Aristocrat, IGT, like you know the names. You're going, we're it.
Yeah.
And there you go. Oh yeah, I never heard of them. I don't know what they do. Never heard of that company. Oh,
And they're getting award after award after award.
for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. So that was a pretty interesting experience. But yeah, it was pretty fun. Good learnings. Good to see a bunch of people. A lot of table games there, which is kind of cool. So I see a little emphasis, right? A lot of people love the roulette card. And separate things.
And
Roulette,
ETGs
card.
are very prevalent in the European market.
Huge.
Yeah.
Do you have any moments that stood out for you from the trip? Not just the show, but just the trip overall.
Moments.
Because I remember one thing that I just think is hilarious that people need to talk about, but I want to see what you have first.
That stood out for me?
For me, and one thing stood out for me.
My favorite moment was when we were walking into a casino and their security's insane off the streets of London.
Yeah, right.
And homeboy looks at me and goes, "Is he good?" And he's like, "I don't know." They like double take, look at me thinking that I'm drunk because they don't allow people that are drunk into the property.
Which is good for responsible gambling, but you hadn't drinking anything.
Nothing.
Like
I didn't really drink at all the entire trip.
And then you're the guy they singled out.
They thought I was handbound.
Yeah.
Which tells me that I look drunk on a normal day basis.
Yeah.
So.
Well, congrats. You have a resting drunk face.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, no, I was laughing because we were in an Uber, right?
Yeah.
And that one. And so the guy, super nice guy. But he goes, "Hey, where are you from? Americans?" And I'm like, "Yeah, American." He goes, "Where in America?" I go, "Oh, Las Vegas." Right? And he goes, "Oh, cowboys. And I go, what do you mean? He goes, everybody dresses like cowboys. I go, no. I don't. I'm wearing like this. I'm a black t-shirt. He goes, no. He goes, but I have all the cowboy stuff. He goes, you know what I need your help with? He goes, I need to find a real cowboy bolo tie. And I was just thinking, like,
I have all the pieces.
I never wished I could have helped somebody more. But he's like, where do I find this? Where's my resource for like a bolo tie? And I was like, but I wish I knew. Like
Amazon, have you heard of it?
Yeah, right. But I think he's like, that's kind of a cheap one. I think he envisioned there to be like some authentic, like Western wear program. And I was like, I just don't know. I was like, the Boot Barn, maybe?
He was so set on thinking that everybody in Nevada was a cowboy.
Yeah.
And just so we're clear, I've lived here for almost 15 years. I've never seen anyone wearing a bolo.
A proper cowboy? No.
In Nevada.
Only during the rodeo.
Yeah.
And I assume most of those bolo are not locals, right? So it's like, so I just felt bad, but I just laugh. I was like, I told everyone that story. I was like, so when you know how it's like, oh, you live in Vegas? Like, do you live at the Bellagio? Like, you get all of these questions that are typical of like your experience. How's it living on the Strip? Well, we don't, you go through the whole spiel, and then you're going, oh, I never got the bolo tie thing. First time, the bolo tie. Let's get it. And I just honestly sat in that cab going, man, I wish I had a good answer for you, because I'd personally send you one, but I don't have any clue.
He was pretty awesome.
Yeah, he was great. That's what I'm saying. He was like such a.
He was Indian, I think, too, right? He was like the Indian cowboy.
Don't know. Don't want to guess, but yeah, he was. So he was
the country.
Yeah, he was some sort of different than we were, but yeah, just like a nice guy. And so it was just like, okay. But like I said, man, I wish I could have helped that guy. But as it is.
He was awesome. What was your biggest takeaway from that show? Like walking in?
The whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, just how much more there is to learn. Like, I think that's been, I mean, we've talked about it all the time, but that's like the journey of the show. That's the journey of just this whole thing, is like how many cool things there are, and how many different, I don't know if it's problems, but things that like our customers have to think about, right? Because when we're going in now, like we look after tables, so we're pitching you some tables thing, right? And you go, that's your world, right?
Yep.
Well, yeah, but I also have to worry about like chip cleaning and cashless and what's the future of like certain technologies. And so walking through that show, you go, oh, like the plate of work that the customers that we talk to on a regular basis are actually trying to complete. It's a world different than I would have thought.
It's a whole different market over there. It's a whole different want.
Just in
It's
general,
a whole different.
sure.
It's crazy. That was so eye-opening for me.
Yeah, no doubt.
What customers want there is completely different than what customers want here. And how do you cater to all?
Yeah.
And still be innovative. Who we got today?
It's Rebel Day, buddy.
It's Rebels.
It is Rebel Day. So before we get to our guests, and in the spirit of Rebel Day, I feel like I have to say this. So played football for UNLV, right, years ago. And that's generally fun to talk about. My quarterback, QB1, the guy that I blocked for 3 out of my 4 years playing, is the new head coach of the Indianapolis Colts.
Oh, no way.
That is like such a cool thing. Yeah, so he just got announced. So just shout out to Shane, dude, well done. Proud of that. That's kind of, I'm like, well, I guess I'm a Colts fan now, right? Like, it's,
hell yeah.
Yeah, so that just got, I mean, by the time this airs, it'll be a week old, but like that just got announced, right? So it's pretty cool to see. So I was like, if it's Rebel Pod, we're shouting out the Rebel brother there. And I mean, it's like reinvigorated the whole alumni base.
Got a lot of like connections to these big, doesn't your brother-in-law play for the Yankees?
Plays now the Twins, but yeah, so that's
when Yankees, traded. Dodgers, now Twins?
Correct, yeah. The life of a journeyman athlete. But yeah, Hammer. So yeah, it's cool. I mean, but it's like,
we gotta get him on.
Yeah, I don't know the rules for that. Maybe. I mean, look, I can ask him.
That would be an interesting.
But it's a bad time to ask him because he's heading into the season. So like, we got to get him on Christmas area time, right? But
my uncle's an NBA ref. Maybe see if we can get him on too.
Do a whole sports pivot.
Yeah,
that'd be fun. Just do like a whole section. Try to get all these guys. No, I don't presume these guys will come on, but it's just cool to see them succeeding and kicking butt. And on Rebel Day, I got to shout out the Rebel that's just making the most waves right now. So
hell yeah, I love it. Did we even
local Reb?
Did we even mention who the guest was?
No, we're gonna do it right now.
Okay.
So our today's guest, Dr. Brent Abarbanel. So you've probably seen her before.
Hot topic right now.
She came on the show before. So
Hot
she's
topic
actually
right now.
Pre-studio. She was a guest. So she's OG with the MaxBet crew. So executive director of International Gaming Institute at UNLV, seasoned researcher. She does a lot. Like I'm going to get all the titles wrong. She's on a lot of the special panels with esports regulations. I know the state of Nevada is leaning on her and her team to say, hey, how do we move this forward? So be interesting to talk to her about some of that. But yeah, she's brilliant. And I laugh because I'm like, I told everybody, she's going to be the smartest person in the room. It's not even close.
She's smart.
Yeah, she is. She is quite smart. So I have a sense that we'll probably talk long with her, so we'll keep it short up front here, and this will be fun. So
let's rock it. Welcome to the pod.
Dr. Brett.
Welcome back. Dr. Brett Abarbanel is with us in the new studio.
Boom. It's Rebel Day.
And we just told her that she is our first guest properly back. The show is now back, and you are our first guest. No pressure.
None felt whatsoever.
What a hell of a way to build it up to not have pressure on someone. It's like,
bam!
You did everything you could to create pressure.
It takes pressure off of me, Mike. That's why.
Luckily, she's smarter than both of us, so this will be easy for her. A little walk in the park, basically, for Dr. Brett.
An old pro, even.
Yeah. Some might say.
Some might say.
How you doing? How goes it?
Things are great, yeah. I'm so excited to be the first in this new studio. It looks amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, it's we're excited too. I mean, it's I don't know. There's so much going on. I'm like stumbling over, but let's start with congratulations. So
Thank you.
I assume by the time this airs, right, that most people will have heard that you are now the fully executive director of the International Gaming Institute. No more interim, no more Bo messing around with your stuff on the desk. All you. It's all your stuff.
Yes.
So congrats on that.
Thank you. And I would have to assume that people may have seen this. UNLV Media Relations, when I'm a little slap happy, was putting my face everywhere.
Yeah.
So if you're tired of seeing my face, just listen to the audio of this podcast and you're good to go.
We're available on iTunes and Spotify. So no
It
problem.
is true. Every time I feel like I open up LinkedIn, you're on some sort of chain.
She's doing something. She's doing something right. Yeah. So, what is your first act as the new head of IGI? Like, did you come in and decree something? Like, how does it work, or is it just business as usual?
So, interesting question regarding decrees. When I told my old friends that I was in this new role, one of them suggested that every time I put the title in writing, instead of writing executive director, I should just write executive dictator, and then slowly but surely, this would just become adopted as my actual title. I have not tried this yet, and frankly, now that I'm saying this out loud, I'm sure it won't work.
Too late to action.
People would have heard the plan and oh, Brett, we know what's up. That's a nice try, but now you know the sort of company I keep. And so my first decree actually hasn't really existed yet. It's more about kind of figuring out exactly where we are. Just like so many different places all through COVID, we've been a little scattered. We've kind of been in different places all over while still trying to maintain the kind of global reputation of good that I like to think IGI holds. One of the reasons why I agreed to become executive director and kind of bring that all together and rebuild us into this hub for global gambling expertise rather than a kind of more broad and scattered hub for global gambling expertise. So it's been really neat to be able to do that. People are really pumped. It's pretty similar to what a lot of groups all over the world are doing right now, coming back together. Like you said, we're the first ones in this studio.
Yeah.
You've had to come back together too.
That's it.
When we last did this, we were on Zoom.
That's right.
None of us were in the same room together.
Fortunately, we have met between then and now. So like we were able to kind of break bread and do some other things.
We just saw her at ICE.
ICE London. But before we get into London, we'll talk for 1 second. So I realize I'm probably just getting ahead going, hey, IGI, congrats. What is the internet? Like for people that may not know, I assume everyone knows. Let's pretend I'm the only guy that doesn't. What is the international?
I can totally pretend that. Yeah. So International Gaming Institute is the standalone academic institute at University of Nevada, Las Vegas. We're part of the division on research, and our big focus is on any subject that falls underneath the umbrella of gambling. So this is everything from problem gambling and addiction. We run the Nevada Problem Gambling Project. It's our longest running project. We've done it since 2006-7-ish, all the way up to like macro socioeconomic impact studies for new jurisdictions that are bringing gambling in, operations and finance analysis, game innovation and game development, regulatory issues. This is like a smattering of the different subjects that we'll touch on.
Yep.
Because the idea is this is a massive holistic thing. We being part of the gambling world, it's a fairly niche world, right?
Yeah.
Like, do you ever talk to folks who's like, oh, how did you get into that space? Like,
every single
weird.
time I tell them what I do.
Yeah, like I didn't know anybody could work in there. Like,
You must live in Vegas.
I did.
Wow.
You mean when you were 10,
live
you didn't
there?
envision that? Yeah, exactly.
So is the strip really like crowded with all the residents in it? No, right?
What?
So
I haven't been there in 4 months. Yeah.
no way. And so even that, right, gambling is a super niche academic field too. And so a lot of what ends up happening is people come into it from different disciplines. Maybe they're sociologists, psychologists, economists, whatever, and they do their interesting study. And IGI is unique in that capacity because we do everything. We really view this thing as a holistic subject. We want to know everything about it because you don't stumble your way into the university world without saying, I want to know everything about everything all the time, right?
Yeah, right.
Just like certain potentially Oscar-winning movies about to come out. So as this all then comes together, that's what we want to do. And clearly, we don't have 1 million employees. So if we did, right, we could do everything and learn everything. So what we do is we try and target really key areas that we've identified. And we have a number of different centers and programs that are connected to that. So, for example, our oldest center is the Center for Gaming Innovation.
Okay.
It was founded 10 years ago. It's in its 10th anniversary.
Wow,
Yay!
double digits.
Let's go.
Super exciting.
Can ride the roller coaster. That's good.
Yeah. This started as a class, right? The idea was, how do we create new games? So Mark Yoseloff was retiring.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Old shuffle.
Yeah.
Table games
And
guy.
Bringing it back.
this is a guy with a PhD from Princeton who shows up at our door going, you know what, I'm retiring. I don't really want to die with all this knowledge in my head. How do I give it to students, right? Like, how do I just hand this out? And we said, oh, we'd love to have you. Mr. Retiring CEO, we can offer a part-time instructor rate of about $2,100 for the entire semester.
Yeah.
So if you are okay with that, we'd love to have you come in
Buy
and
4
hang
cups of
out with
coffee and a
us.
pair of shoes. Yeah.
And he said, yeah, okay. Which was great. And that was it. So the idea is you can just come in with an idea or even no idea. We help you think through what your idea might be. And by the end of the class, have some concept of a new game or a new product. They do all sorts of interesting projects. It started with creation of gambling games, and over the last decade, it's expanded so much. There's all sorts of different innovations that help within the gambling world. There's non-gambling games. We got a donation of a really cool dual VR rig during COVID.
Yeah.
So now we do VR games as well. You're welcome to come over and
zombie
check
shoot.
it
I'm in,
out.
yeah.
It's real cool.
So you mentioned that. So when you're saying, so Mr. Yoseloff, I'm sure there's others that put together these teachings, right? Yeah. Is it enrolled students? So it's like Rebel students get to go sign up for this as either a major or something, or is it guys like Landon and I could come and be interested in classes as well?
That's the great thing about UNLV, guys. Both.
Cool. Yeah.
So it's an enrolled class. It's actually, it became so popular that it's now offered both semesters, fall and spring, not just fall.
Oh, nice.
And it's part of the course catalog. So that's like that permanency, right?
Yeah,
that you
that's
would
cool.
need in a university. And we have students who enroll as non-degree seeking students just to take it. Multiple times, we've had students who flew to Las Vegas from other states once a week just to take this class and then fly home.
That's pretty cool.
Here's a question I've always wondered, not to talk about the competitors.
Oh, yeah.
But are there other casino-focused institutes out there other than UNLV that you guys compete with? Or are we the only sort of like university that offers this sort of class?
Yes and no. There are others, but one of the luxuries of being an academic institute is that you don't really think about them as competitors. You think about them as collaborators.
Right.
And I know just how corny that sounds, right?
It's okay.
But it's true.
I feel bad for asking the question now.
No, don't feel guilty
Jerk.
at all.
Yeah.
No, it's really cool because the idea is that you meet someone who has a similar interest to you.
Yeah.
That's someone you want to work with. It's not
Yeah.
someone that you're then competing against for other stuff. I mean, there are clearly competitive moments, right? Maybe you're applying for the same grant and they're only going to fund one of them.
Sure,
well,
right.
that happens, right? But in the end, the really nice thing is that you just get to keep meeting more people who have similar interests to you and then find ways to make them part of your work life.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Well, that's actually good news because I think as much as I've been familiar with like Bo and the IGI and obviously Dr. Brett now the last couple of years, I never thought I could just walk in and take a class, right? Like we were supportive, and I don't know if it's the same thing, but I know like at past companies we've participated either as sponsors or panelists, right? But I just assume it was always students, right? But I'm like, damn, we learn all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Pushing 40, still don't know everything. Pretty good opportunity to go learn.
It's constantly changing.
Yeah.
We even talk about Yoseloff and like what his knowledge base was back then.
Yeah.
Doesn't really, I mean, it sort of resonates. It's cool to have that history, but like the way the games are being designed and developed now, completely different. And it'll be different in 5 years.
Yeah,
So
it just
constantly
continues to
evolving,
evolve.
for sure.
That's wild. So a lot of research going on. is there, I don't want to, I'm sure all the projects are like your kids. You don't want to say, oh, this is my favorite one. But what are some of the research projects? And is there one where you wake up going, oh, I can't wait to check in on that?
Oh, I totally have favorites.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. I don't want to send you down the rabbit hole of which child.
We may not have competitors, but we play favorites.
Got
okay? Come on.
Perfect.
So, So my pet interest is video games and esports.
Yeah.
It's a space that I've been part of for a while. I was totally an outdoor kid growing up. Like, we didn't even have cable, let alone like a console or something like that. I think the video game that we had in our house was the Magic School Bus and the Solar System or something like that, right? I got to have these great memories of sending
now you're a
Mrs.
scientist.
Right? Yeah, now I'm a scientist. Right? Of like sending Mrs. Frizzle to jump over the different craters and stuff in Jupiter while you learn about the different moons and things.
Gravity.
So clearly it stuck with me, right? I learned something from Magic
yeah.
School Bus, and that's the goal. But I was a total outdoor kid, and I didn't really become an indoor kid until later. I did the thing that like teenage girls do all the time, which is play soccer and then tear your ACL and ruin your hopes and dreams for going off to play soccer at university. But that's okay. You know, don't hold any sort of grudge on that. And
you want to do a 60-second unload on that? Or no? Yeah.
And I became, it totally changed the trajectory of my life. It's such a good, I would not be in this seat with you if I hadn't torn my ACL at age like 16.
Wild?
That is crazy.
It's totally crazy. I didn't end up, I was recruiting for.
You were on track to be a collegiate soccer player and the whole thing?
Let me put a little disclaimer on that one. Yeah. I was set to go to very famous sports athletics program, MIT, to play soccer. And then I tore my ACL and I went to a totally different school where I did a totally different major than I originally would have planned. I played poker, I met my future spouse, and I ended up in Las Vegas where I started doing work at UNLV, and now I do this for a living, right? Jeez. So a totally different trajectory. It's kind of crazy to think about sometimes.
That's wild.
It is wild.
All I heard her say is that the IGI is now the MIT of gaming.
Yeah.
My brain immediately went to, she probably would have been on the MIT card counting team if that had happened. So I'm like, there would have been another avenue in there because you were destined for this industry.
Yeah. So I don't want to be too much of a brag here.
Yeah.
But Roger Gross from Global Gaming Business has called IGI the Harvard of gaming.
Okay.
So I don't know if the competitors, there's some competition across the river at in Boston and Cambridge would really love such a comparison, but we'll take both because we're all the way over here.
That's it. Yeah, what are you going to do?
Come on over.
Come on
Tell
over.
us how you feel.
Let's see. That's so funny. Wow. So, it's funny. We were talking beforehand. I said, guys, don't even worry. She'll be the smartest person in the room. And that just continues to shine. Like, you were like, I was going to go to MIT. That was like
that one school. Have you heard of it?
Super famous
got in there.
Program.
No big deal. Yeah.
Okay. So you have a favorite.
Oh, yeah.
You made this clear.
Right. I totally went off track.
No, you're good.
We do that.
This is that's a okay podcast.
This is the show
right?
for that. Yeah, totally.
So, video games and esports. And I really started getting into that. I really started playing a lot of games I mentioned meeting my future spouse. I totally wanted to impress him. And so I was like, I got to get real good at the thing he loves, which is video games. Well, I'm not that great at them.
How'd that go? Oh, I was going to say, would you get good enough to beat him? Like, because that's always a delicate line too, right? Like,
it's like the biggest competition in my household is who can get the highest ranking in team fight tactics every set. That's my favorite game.
Nice.
I did beat him to diamond last set, but then he did crush my ranking in the end of the
Who has more time to play?
Up all night. Yeah,
he definitely has way more time to play.
Problem solved.
There you
I'm
go.
no mathematician, but
Mr. Dr. Brett, it's not fair. Okay, we just call him that. Video game passion, and then you mentioned esports,
and that area of research, and that too, right? Just like gambling has so many different areas that you can study. That's also a huge interest and passion of mine. It started clearly as, what does betting and gambling look like in video games and esports? And it takes on all sorts of super interesting forms, just like it does with sports. And then there's all sorts of really neat, unique elements to esports and video games that are so tied to their kind of digital existence that make that really interesting. And then other things as well. The last couple of years, I've started doing a bit more work in kind of the manipulation of esport, which is parallel to manipulation of sport.
Does that mean cheating? Like, does that mean just cheating in esport? Like the
cheating, match fixing, things like sport washing, which has become such a huge issue, right? You think about the World Cup. Did you guys watch the games?
Some of them. I watched the title game and the USA games.
Yeah. So I tried so hard to be like, a boycott, right? Like,
Yep.
how dare you do this thing that
because of
killed,
Qatar,
killed so many human lives in the creation of this. And I couldn't help myself. I had to watch the final. I just love the game so
what
much.
a game, by the way.
And incredible. Holy crap. That was amazing. But that issue exists in esport as well. There are a variety of different groups that are investing in esport that's getting a lot of backlash. So, for example, there's huge Saudi investment in esports. And there's a lot of backlash because one of the major drivers behind it is actually connected to the Khashoggi murders from the embassy.
Interesting.
Wow.
And and I'm not accusing anyone of anything.
Sure.
I don't know enough
judges,
about the
right?
situation to make final judgment on that. But that sort of thing has inspired a lot of backlash. So, for example, Riot Games, which makes League of Legends, makes Teamfight Tactics, had announced a partnership with a major Saudi organization. There's huge backlash from the fans. And so that ended up, the agreement lasted, I think, less than 24 hours before they said, okay, you know what, we've heard you guys, we're out. So those sorts of things, that's kind of that manipulation of sport, esports.
So I think you said sport washing.
Well.
Is that what that's called,
Sport
basically? When somebody's doing something bad and goes, well, no, we're just going to invent a sport so you'll love us again.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
interesting.
like whitewashing a sport, I think is the origin of that one.
Huh. Wild. I always forget about esports popularity overseas because it's not so legal here. I mean, I know you could watch it here, right? You could watch the tournaments, but you're not really betting on it the same.
Yeah,
or are you?
There's some, and it depends, right? So clearly places where there's more widespread betting and acceptance of betting, you're going to get a bit more of esports as well. But it's definitely growing here. So the Nevada Gaming Control Board, for example, they just approved some changes to Reg 22, which covers the state's sports and race pool wagering. To include esports, which is really going to streamline the process for getting esports events and leagues and tournaments, et cetera, into a more or easier fashion to get them available to books. I know it's something that's come up in some of the new legislation in various states. I know that New Jersey, for example, speaking of competitors, right? Hey!
There we go.
That's something where they're pretty keen on learning more about esports as well and incorporating that into more streamlined regs. So I think we'll see a bit of growth for it. But there's also an element when you look at this from, again, that digital existence that esports has, where there's so much less interest or, I guess, in some ways, lack of care over jurisdictional lines, right? It's a thing that exists in a digital world, and so those jurisdictional lines don't always matter quite as much, at least to the consumer.
Right. And then, so I guess the way you're unfolding that is we've made it easier now for, and I just pick on Luxor because I know they had, at least at one point, a big esports arena they were advertising, right? And somebody here to go, okay, we're going to host an esports competition, right? And then now with some of these regulation changes, it's one step closer to William Hill or Derek of Circus Sports going, hey, you could bet on that. So we're doing the Abarbanel household showdown in Teamfight Tactics, and who's going to, well, you can take your odds, right? And so you go, okay, that's how far away do you think that is? Like, I mean, is it?
Well, hopefully no one will be wagering on my household's competition.
Just you two for chores or whatever.
That would be so at risk of throwing the competition that I do not advise anybody. Right, Jeff Benson over at Circa, please do not take wagers on my household's games.
Sorry, Jeff.
Yeah, and but it is certainly a lot closer and a lot easier to access. More knowledge every day on what esports is. Right, it's kind of this nebulous term, but just like sports, it's a whole variety of different games and activities that people do that other people like to watch. It's spectatorship and competition, just like so many of our favorite sports are.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I mean, I'd love to do it. I mean, I think part of the appeal to esports, and maybe I'm wrong, I grew up playing not really the games of today, like James Bond or GoldenEye was your kid. So it's like we would, not some bet, but you'd have casual bets.
Were you Odd Job?
We would outlaw Odd Job, so you could say no Odd Job.
So now I know for sure you played, right?
Yeah. So there, there was
I was Odd Job only because he was my same height.
Real life.
I was just trying to mimic my own self.
Guys, he's the one that looks the most like me.
Yes, he does definitely look the most like Landon of all of the characters for sure.
And I would never play with Jaws. We would happily let you play with Jaws, but you couldn't. But no, we were big proximity mine in the complex guys. For anyone that's really geeking out on the old N64 program,
hiding in the old grades.
My point in any of this, sounds right. My point in saying any of this was, it felt like we were all good. right?
Yeah.
So I mean, everybody kind of gets it. So when you watch somebody play these really high level games, you go, I could have done that. Like, it's just weird. Like, you feel like you can watch it for me because I can possibly could have attained it. Like now today, no chance. But when I was a kid, I felt like, man, if I would just double down on this, maybe I could have been better. I don't know.
Well, you look at our parents back then, and we were playing video games. Like, why are you inside? Go outside. Go play. You're not going to amount to anything. Now these esports kids are making $10, $20, $30 million a year. It's like, thanks for the missed opportunity, mom and dad. Sorry.
There's a famous Far Side comic about this. Have you seen it? It's the kid is playing video games, and the parents are there with like the dream thought bubbles, and it's like job classifieds looking for people with all these skills of playing the different video games.
Yeah.
Like, this is real now.
This is what we're doing. Yeah, you got to be able to work the joystick or whatever, whatever the skill is.
Talk about an interview though. Like, you just sit a kid down and put him in front of a game and say, "Play." We'll see how good you are.
Well, look, that's just it too. There's so many skills that translate. So if you look at like the mid to late 2000s. I would regularly recommend people, like if you played World of Warcraft, for example, and you were a member of a guild, maybe you were an officer in that guild, you put that on your CV because that's leadership experience. You're running an organization within this game.
Yeah, it makes sense. I was, again, EverQuest guy. So I think it's like a World of Warcraft, but medieval or whatever. And so anyway, but you're right. I mean, I don't remember any of it. I know I was in a guild at some point, but it's like, I definitely wasn't the leader of it. Right? Yeah, you can. Yeah, I'm a nerd, dude. I don't hide from it. But it was. You're right though, because that person back then, I don't know if it was email. There was some version of messaging where you go, okay, be on it this time because we're gonna band together and go for the sword or whatever the hell we were fighting for. So. Yeah, it's interesting to put that on a resume. I don't know what I would do as a person that hires people now to go. So that walk me through that. Like you're now hyping this position as guild leader for, whatever. Team
I would
Bangarang.
love to see that.
I think it'd be great.
We talk about households.
Yeah. Sure.
And when we had the MaxBet studio just down the street here, before we moved it to LNW, we had I think we had a PlayStation and an Xbox.
Yeah.
And around 3:00, Mike would always go in and start playing. I'm like, yo, we got stuff today. He's like, I can't play this at home. He's like, I gotta finish my level here. I just timed him out.
Yeah, thanks.
This is like when
Desiree.
my sister and I were kids and we would do like family vacation. We'd usually drive somewhere and go stay there. And my parents would always be like, vacations for the stuff you can't do at home, right? So my sister would be like, oh my God. Or they're like, we want to go to McDonald's. And they're like, no, guys, it's for stuff we can't do at home. And we're like, we don't go to McDonald's at home.
Yeah. Just funny, like, speaking of that, like the kids give you such a weird perspective because your parents are thinking, hey, we're going to go to this custom whatever restaurant and wherever you were. You're going, no, just McD's would be good. Like,
a couple chicken nuggets.
Haven't had a quarter pounder in 4 years. Let's do it. Yeah. Oh, good.
So that is your favorite segment.
It's the
international
that's my special pet.
That's your special pet, your favorite child.
Yeah.
What are you most I don't want to say like where, like what is your biggest challenge taking on this new position, and what are you more excited to learn more about?
That's a hard question.
You said it was the interview seat.
This is the hot
Where is it?
Well, I don't want to sound like strangely cocky, but in a way, in some ways it's all a challenge, and in other ways it's not a challenge. It's the kind of thing where if you really feel like you've prepared yourself well for the job, there will be struggles, right? There's going to be things that come up that are super difficult to deal with, and I'm expecting that.
Yep.
But so far it's been so much less of a challenge and so much more of just a constant nonstop learning experience.
Yeah.
Whether that's just learning more about what some of my colleagues do, right? When I was director of research, it was great and I had tons of collaboration with my own colleagues, but I was so hyper-focused on the research piece of what IGI does, and we do so many other programs, right? We've got our research, education, and innovation. And you said, tell me about IGI. I got through like 20% of what we do in that. So we'll get back to that, right?
Yeah.
That's fine. And more now that I get to learn all these things that people do, I get to learn more about all the super cool bureaucratic administration things that come along with a state university, public university where we live and breathe. So that probably is my biggest challenge.
Some red tape, actually.
Red tape is going strong and always will, right? Scarlet and gray is not just our colors, it's also the
tape on the
tapes
projects,
that we get to deal with. But at the same time, a lot of that is part of what we do. One of the really great things about being at a university is that you get to be, if you're doing things right, an objective and neutral voice that does research, finds answers, and then talks about that, even if they're not super popular answers that you need to talk about. And a lot of the red tape that we have helps us set up the different firewalls necessary to be able to be that objective voice and show the different ways in which we are neutral to the different stakeholders that we work with.
Interesting.
That is wild. So I guess frame it like, what ambition are you looking forward to, right? Because it's like, hey, the challenges exist today, but now you're going, okay, looking forward, I'm trying to solve XYZ problem. Like, what are you?
So I'm really excited to continue to evolve IGI. So speaking of anniversaries, right?
Sure.
This is our 30th anniversary.
IGI.
Yeah. Think about gambling research, right? 30 years is ancient.
Yeah.
So
Maybe,
to be able to take everything that we've done, we've grown through super different phases of the gambling world. When we were founded, like, we were still kind of this big empty patch of land near the strip that was still not even totally looking like what it looks like today, right? I mean, it was 1993.
Yeah.
So there's still plenty that even went up after that. And now to today, where everything is online, right? We talked about how last time we did this podcast, it was all over Zoom.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, that didn't exist in 1993. And gambling has followed suit. And so as gambling has evolved, so too have we worked to evolve what we know and what we study so that we can continue to be, again, I don't want to sound too cocky, but I really believe we're global leaders in this space. And so what I'm really excited about, really motivated to do, is keep us continuing to evolve with the rest of the gambling world and not kind of chasing from behind, but being part of that at the forefront.
Yeah.
Yeah, the adoption of technology seems to be one of the complaints, I think, in the biz, right?
Right.
Because when
It's
you
that
say
red
just
tape.
across, well, it's, and you get it because you go, look, the industry's so highly regulated, right? They want to make sure it's a fair shake, right? So the number one, I think, provision is let's protect the games to make sure that if you're putting your money in, you're going to get a fair chance to win, right? So that's the reasoning. And then they go, well, this iPhone technology gets out of sorts. Like, how could you manipulate the outcome or something, right? But like, to the point that we could do more. Like, that's what I think gets interesting was you look at esports. You go, man, the tech that they're running versus what we walk in the building and see is just worlds apart.
Well, technology is, we're trying to keep up with it, right?
Yeah.
And then you say we're 30 years old,
Yeah.
right? And then you look at any other industry and there are hundreds of years of like research and learning and like, so they're kind of caught up with the tech, not really even the technologies superseding them, but we're even just trying to get caught up to that point.
Yeah.
And technology is just at a light speed right now, but it's pretty cool.
No doubt.
So you were just in London.
I was.
And we
just
saw
like
you there.
guys.
That was fun. That was
Yeah.
exciting. Actually,
At
that was a cool. Wow. I was gonna. Nice.
Go ahead.
No. It's okay. We saw each other outside of the Magic Mike Theater.
Correct.
Which is, I think, a key differentiator. But yeah, it was funny. We were walking in, and then we saw, and we're like, "What? Like, totally? How
so
good is
rad.
this?
I
Like,
was
best
so
energy in the
excited.
building."
I
Yeah.
was like, you guys were the third group of people that I saw in that penny bar that I knew. Like, I had no idea this is where everyone
Second floor of the
collected.
Hippodrome.
I
Place
was
to
so
be.
excited. I stood up on my bar stool to be tall like Mike, so
Yeah.
he'd see me, right? Waving my arms around like a man.
Wow. Yeah.
It's to the point. Dan Waugh, who was sitting with me, leans over and goes, do you actually know that guy, or is that you're just kind of standing tall? Is that, like,
That happens to me everywhere I go, so it was kind of an interesting. No, I'm just kidding. That was pretty cool. Yeah, he definitely looked. He's like, so what's going on here exactly? You're like, well, we know each other. It's okay.
You
We're
felt pretty
buds now.
proud walking tall outside the Magic Mike show.
I did actually.
named
Yeah,
Mike?
I knew. Yeah.
You were the actual Mike.
Mike in.
There's no magic here. Let me tell you. But
That's
otherwise,
till he gets on stage.
yeah, I'm more of a comedy act than whatever they're doing. But yeah, that was wild. Did you end up
was
seeing
fun.
that show? Did you go in and check
No,
out
I
the old
didn't
Magic
go.
Mike?
Every year that show has been around, Simon Thomas,
Yep.
our friend, the CEO of Hippodrome,
Yep.
is like, "Brett, you have to go to the show. You have to go to the show." And I'm always by myself, and I think it would be very weird to go by myself to go see, the Magic Mike show.
I think maybe.
No, it has such amazing reviews. People keep going and coming back. It's incredible. So, like, Kristen Bell was on the Kelly Clarkson show the other day, just gushing about how
good
great
is
the
that?
show
Yeah.
is, yeah? And she goes, and it's at some casino in London. And Simon's like, well, I'm not even insulted, right? Because you search for the show,
Yeah,
and you're
yeah.
coming to the show, right? But I've had friends who went to it, and they say it's really incredible, right? It is a Magic Mike show. It's what you might expect, right, from the movies and everything that comes into that. But it's also, like, I don't want to just throw the word empowering around. I know it's almost become a buzzword these days. Sure. Yeah. But apparently it really is. It's like there's so much focus on not just empowering women, but also empowering men, as well as consent, all while people are, like, dancing around and there's butts floating around by your face. So, I mean, to be able to capture that is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's why.
It's a brilliant marketing move by the Hippodrome. You got 400 women screaming at Magic Mike that come out of the show excited, full of energy, and the casino's just buzzing.
2 shows a night, So, and the guys aren't stupid because they know there's where all the ladies are going to be.
It's
so
brilliant.
They're hanging out, lingering in the lobby, right, or in the the main floor or whatever. Yeah, that was a cool spot, the Hippodrome. That was. I can't get over the fact that they used to have elephant shows there, right in the middle.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. When Mike
like
got up on stage
to
accept an L&W award, he goes,
No, I presented it. I didn't accept it.
Bring back the elephants. Bring back the elephants in front of a room full of people.
I didn't know what to say. I don't do well on script, right? Like I don't do well of like read this note card in front of 500 people you've never met. So I was like,
that's supposed to be the easy way of doing things.
I know, but it's so uncomfortable to me, right? Because here's the thing: if I just go in ad lib and go, what's up, guys? Like, you have no idea if I messed up or not. If I'm reading a card and I go, and I'd like to present the award, like now you very clearly know what the next word was supposed to be, and that I just tripped over it. So I'm more of a fan. I don't know. Let's just do it. And so I just was laughing because Simon, the executive chairman owner of Hippodrome, kind of starts at the front. He goes, "Hey, if anyone here is a Hippodrome virgin, welcome. It's a pretty cool building. Check it out." Like, he was a super gracious host. And so I just sat there and I go, "Well, that's me. I'm new.
He said, I'm a virgin.
Yeah, I'm a Hippodrome virgin.
Bring back the elephants."
I did say that, yeah. I said that exactly. And they found out later it was live streamed. Did you fill out
one of those feedback cards?
No, I just told him to his face. No. But yeah, it was cool. I said, "Bring back the elephants." They had a bunch of other like circusy stuff there. It's just like, what a cool building to make into a gambling experience.
What a cool week in general. Like thinking about this is my first ice. And so I've been to 15 G2Es and I'm like, it's probably similar. Couldn't be
very different.
It's so different. Like if you're listening and you've been to G2E, I would say 70% of our show is full of slot machines, EGMs. Yeah. Complete opposite at ice. And it's, by the way, probably 2 times the size of our ice. Or our G2E. Massive.
It's big.
I
don't
know.
know.
50,000 people.
It's insane.
That's what I heard too.
That's
insane.
And maybe 20% of slot machines. I don't even know the right number, but it's completely flipped.
Yeah, they definitely have, again, so much more of that evolution of the gambling world.
Yeah.
I'm so hopeful. We're starting to get it a little bit with G2E.
Yeah.
Probably starting around 2017, we really start seeing more of G2E venturing out into that space. And for a long time it was tough, right? You're not going to see a ton of sports betting products when you don't have sports betting all over the place in the US,
Online gaming, same thing.
So what's really neat about ICE is it shows all those different areas where we have such interesting evolution. Not necessarily legal evolution, right? Especially, coming from America, but just seeing what's out there. So things like tons of crypto is at this event, which is really neat. I love that they have the consumer protection zone right up front and center, right? It's right inside N1. When you walk into Excel, you turn left, you're like, awesome, look at the evolution. And again, technology, right? Sometimes I like to joke, and it's crazy to be able to joke about this, but responsible gambling, this concept, has kind of become a big business. Yeah. And it's so evident here at Excel during ICE, just to see the different ways that people have innovated in the space of keeping people safer while they're engaging in what is naturally a risky behavior.
Yeah, for sure.
That is wonderful to see.
That would be my question to you going to a show like ICE. Like, what are you looking for? What does, like, your meeting schedule look like at a show overseas like ICE?
Well, like waving, kissing babies.
Yeah,
that
cool.
sort of normal thing.
I know that.
Right?
Didn't see so many babies in the show, but that was just Landon, I think.
Odd job.
Yeah, do like carry them around on your shoulders type of situation. Hey, everybody.
Not at the table, Carla.
But it's about having meetings with so many different stakeholders. And that's another thing about ICE. And we really are getting that quite a bit at G2E2, which is really great, which is that so many people from, again, I say the gambling world, because if you say the gambling industry, it's so focused on the industry, the production of a gambling experience. But there's so much more involved here. We see legislators from all over the world, tons of regulators from all over the world. There's regulatory workshops that go on during ICE. People from the public health field field, problem gambling clinicians who are there. There's a variety of them who are in the consumer protection zone. And they all really come together at a major event like this one that in some ways is a celebration of everything gambling, and in other ways is a celebration of how to make that gambling space sustainable. Because if you go all out, I mean, clearly we've learned this with sports betting. Look at some of the backlash that's happening now. If you go all out, there's going to be pushback, right? You can't just go all out with something that's a naturally risky activity because there's going to be potential harm associated with it. So when I talk about this sustainable space, that's what I mean. It's all these other stakeholders who are involved in the different decision-making processes, whether that's governmental decision-making processes that create the regulations that dictate how the gambling world exists in certain parts of the world, to the industry itself, which is making decisions about what those products eventually look like.
And what's coming, right? I was talking to BG Brian Green, who's the AGM
friend of the show, top
Green,
25
friend of the
GGB.
show. And he was like, how was ICE? How was London? And I said, you really should think about going next year. And he goes, really? Why? I said, because it's literally a glimpse into the future of what's going to be coming. And so to prepare yourself, prepare your property, whether you're a brick and mortar, tribal, non-tribal, state, like they're kind of writing the future of gaming technology, in my opinion. Even look at it just simply with sports betting, prop bets, right? Like 80%, I forget what Martin's, don't quote me on that. In Europe are prop, and it's starting to become more the trend in the US because we have better technologies, better ways of like in-game betting. I'm the last person you want to talk to about sports betting, but just looking at technologies coming from Europe, that same kind of transition is going to happen from like esports or online gambling with different platforms and what have you.
Yeah, and I think part of the thing that was cool for me seeing is you see what some of these guys are doing, and you go, oh, okay, that's interesting. So I may not do that, but if you just tweak it a little, you can bring it to land-based, right? Because you're not that far away. Like the gap in technology isn't that big. It's just the approval of it, right? And so, yeah, no, it was exciting. It was definitely a big show. That was for sure.
By the way, there's things that we do better in the North America that could be adopted as well into Europe. Walking some of those properties, it's completely different landscape with like the 20 machines, and it's just an interesting to see how those two businesses are ran. But if you're listening to this and you are in a brick and mortar or land-based casino in the U.S. or in Canada or Latin, wherever you are, think about going to ICE next year. It's really an eye-opening experience.
No doubt.
Shout out.
Go to the Hippodrome, Penny Bars, see everyone you need to see. That's what we're doing.
Do you guys keep a list of folks who are totally paying commission for these shout outs? I mean, that seems like an obvious.
That's we don't talk about that list.
Oh, there is a list. Well, throw that joke out the window.
We do disclose if they're ever a sponsor. No worries. That was just fun times. And then speaking of fun times, unintended segue. We have your conference coming up. So the what is it? The International Conference on Gambling and Risk Taking?
It is indeed. The 18th iteration will be coming May 23rd to 25th, 2023 at Park MGM here in Las Vegas.
Stamp it. Look at you. You're like the ambassador, which is great.
We can cross that off our list.
Yeah. So just sold. Okay, so what would one expect from this conference? Obviously, some talks about gambling and risk taking.
Everything, right? So there's the easy answer. So the International Conference on Gambling and Risk Taking, we only do it every 3 years. This time around, we had a 1-year delay for the normal reason. And it's been around, this is the 18th iteration, it's almost 50 years old. And again, that makes it, in the gambling field, this is the oldest, biggest, and
ancient,
totally unbiased opinion, best conference in gambling risk-taking
Absolutely
research.
The best, yeah.
And we get all sorts of really interesting folks. The first event back in 1974 had about 6 people attend. It was founded by the father of the gambling research field, Bill Eadington, who had this idea that this was a space that people could actually study, right?
Yeah,
this is a place that we could make an academic discipline. And it's only grown from there. At our last conference, we had somewhere between like 550, 600 people. We had 34 different countries represented.
Wow.
And we had a huge variety of subjects. We have lots of presentations that come in from the academic space. We do a call for abstracts that's now closed. Our draft program will be coming out probably late next week.
Nice.
And for when this airs, that is the week of the 20th.
Got it. So right
February
around
20th,
airtime.
right around airtime of this. And it's everything. So our field has a pretty heavy emphasis on things like problem and responsible gambling. So we get usually 2 full tracks of that kind of content, as well as different legal and policy research work that comes out. We get a lot of economists who come, mathematicians. The mathematicians are so great because they kind of come out of the woodwork every few years. Like, hey, I've invented a new game, or hey, here's this new theory I came up with, or
new math.
Yeah, new math, right? You know, to inspire the words of Tom Lehrer over here, and then we have there's a couple conferences in a row. There's a guy who came and just basically talked about how he beat the books at the latest NBA season. And so you're like, oh yeah, let me take notes on this one. Going into the next season. So all sorts of different subjects that come from the various disciplines in the academic world. And then we have a huge slate of different curated panels on a whole variety of subjects. Yeah. So you joked about the MIT Blackjack team.
Right.
We've reunited the MIT Blackjack team at our conference.
No way.
Yes, in 2013, we did this with Andy Block, wonderful guy, local here in Las Vegas. You should have him on the podcast.
Done.
Deal.
So famous poker player as well as member of one of the blackjack teams, and he brought them together. And it was so interesting. This is like you learn from experience. We had people who weren't allowed to come be on this panel because we submitted their names to Caesars, where we were hosting the conference then, and they said, oh, actually, these people are on the blacklist. They're not allowed on the property.
They've been 86.
So,
you can't do that.
So they're not. They can't come. But so that was an interesting learning experience. It was a really, really cool panel. We had people, do video chat in or pre-record some content.
Did they not go?
They did not come.
Okay, you didn't get the approval. Okay, sorry.
We did not get
I had to know.
for them to go.
They didn't backdoor him with a fake mustache or anything.
It was a no. Yeah.
Okay.
And so we had at the last conference in 2019, we brought together some of the folks from NCAA to talk about what the overturning of PASPA meant for them, because clearly that's a huge
PASPA,
thing.
the Professional Amateur Sports Betting Act. What does that stand for?
Protection Act.
Protection
Yeah.
Act.
You got all the rest of it.
Okay, perfect.
Yes.
I'm like, I know generally what it is, but I'm easily just going to go alphabet soup and everyone listening will be like, what the hell? So, okay, perfect. Keep us honest.
And so that was a super interesting panel. At our last conference, one of the keynotes was Penn Jillette from Penn and Teller, right? These are 2 guys who get up on stage and shoot guns at each other's heads. So clearly there's an element of risk-taking to what they do. And that was a super interesting talk that he gave just generally on risk-taking and what that means for gambling, what it's like to be in a risky business that's not gambling, but in a place like Las Vegas. Yeah. Super interesting guy, as well as a whole variety of other different keynotes and subjects that come up. And so it usually ends up being probably about half of it is academics who come and attend, and the other half is everyone else, right? Again, we try to bring all the stakeholders together. So tons of gambling industry folks come every single year. Thank you again to Light and Wonder, who is going to be one of the sponsors for our conference.
While I'm
here, may as well say thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
So please come be part of this. We have different peripheral industries, right? So like the data companies, the payments companies who come. Lots of legislators and regulators who come to learn more about this. Legal folks, policy folks. We offer CLEs for relevant legal tracks that we have, as well as CEUs for people who are clinicians who need those continuing education units, as well as other people who might be interested in this, public health, different nonprofit foundations, massive slate of different perspectives on the gambling world.
That's a lot. That's pretty cool.
Did you write that down?
No, but we recorded it. So I can go back later and listen. So question. So you mentioned a lot of fun past keynotes. Like, do you have anything up your sleeve so far for this year? Like,
Yes.
A-list celebrities.
Are you willing to disclose that yet? Or is it a surprise to everyone? Or what? You can tell us. No,
it's like a
wondering.
horribly kept secret, mainly because I have been bad at keeping the secret and not because I can blame
that
on anybody else.
Let's get it out there.
So, okay, I'll name, it's great. We'll just talk about everything.
Yes.
Planned. So,
Power of the pod.
Terrible secret keeper.
So drive attendance.
Yeah. So there will be announcements about this, but one of the keynotes, I'm super excited about this. He's a friend, Connor Fields, another local. So you may remember his name.
BMX
gold
right.
medalist
that's
from
cool.
2016.
Well done.
This is your guy.
Well done.
I know everything. Not everything. I know a little bit about everything.
That's a big statement. I like it.
I'm a trivia guy.
Super interesting guy because he can talk about what it's like to engage not just in a risky sport, but also all the risk taking and lack of risk taking that goes, calculated risk taking, if you will, that goes into preparation as an Olympic athlete. All the way down to like, do I drink this cup of coffee because will the nutrients that are in this coffee have a positive or negative effect on my body in the next couple hours? So those sorts of calculated decision making.
That is cool.
And what makes the story even more interesting is he went out and he had this incredible success. And so he went out to have a repeat performance. He went to the Tokyo Olympics where he had this horrific crash that required massive recovery. And so he can speak, and I'm not even spoiling anything with this, right? This guy's story is so incredible. He tells it so well. Super nice guy, talking about risk-taking and when you pay off in a huge way, right? Do you get much higher than a gold medal at the Olympics?
Can't imagine.
And all the way to the other end, right? Nearly dying.
Yeah, ambulance ride home.
Really,
kind of thing,
really incredible story. Super interesting guy. I'm very. He's done his sort of dry run rehearsal for his keynote. It's so good. Oh my God.
Yeah.
You will laugh. You will cry. You will celebrate.
I'm engaged.
That's a guy. He's dry run 4 months early. Like that guy's prepared. No wonder he's an Olympian.
He's totally.
I have no idea what I'm going to say in 4 days, let alone 4 months from now. Right?
Oh yeah. Like, he came and he's like, so I've added some kind of gambling-y terms to the talk, and I don't know, like it might be kind of corny, and he gives it, and we're like, all of it. Keep all of those.
Those
are
corny
great.
at all. That's
we
perfect.
love those terms. That's like, So super interesting guy. And then we also, we just announced this a couple weeks ago even. We, at IGI, we have an MOU now with Gaming Society. They're a sports betting media company. It was founded by Jamie Messler, who and Kevin Garnett.
Kevin Garnett I've heard of. I don't know Jamie.
You probably actually have heard of Jamie, just maybe not her name. So Jamie is actually one of the founders of the Players Tribune, the sports media site.
I have heard of that.
Yeah. And so her next venture was Gaming Society.
Cool.
And Gaming Society is a really interesting group. They have these sort of two main goals. One is just educating bettors, right? Those are the most basic concept of if you're going to place a bet, why not know what you're doing? Right?
Yeah, right.
This is a complex space. And so that has been really neat. That's something clearly we as educators at UNLV are advocates of. And then the other huge piece that Gaming Society does is a concept called Bet on Women, which is about promoting women who are sports bettors, as well as looking at ways that we can leverage the betting world to support the growth of women's sports in a sustainable way.
That's cool.
Because women's sports, of course, has struggled for such a long time.
Sure.
So anyway, we're working with Gaming Society on some research in this area, some collaboration, and they're going to help us put together a really cool keynote panel. I don't know exactly who's going to be on it yet, so I can't actually spoil that.
That's okay. Yeah.
All I know is I said, the things that you did at G2E, we want to repeat that. They had this amazing session at G2E that was part of like a cocktail party. So you're right. So everyone's like, everything is great. But it was like they had Cheryl Swoops on this panel.
Oh, wow, yeah,
so for those of you listening who are unfamiliar,
WNBA Hall of Famer. Right?
Hall of Famer. This person,
nice.
Sports is kind of
she
my
has a Nike shoe named after her. Right? It's like the second
NBD.
Nike shoe. There's the Air Jordan and then the Air Swoops.
That's
right.
Yeah.
So she was there, and I would like sidle and be like, oh my God, I just breathed the same air as Cheryl Swoops. And then
Not
all
really.
week
She's
I was
like 6'5".
She's way
my
taller.
height,
I breathed her waist level air. Right?
She's another altitude.
Yeah.
Well, her and Kevin Garnett will be interesting because Kevin Garnett, I don't know if you know this, but 7 foot tall NBA champion, like one of the better. I mean, he's in the top probably 20. I would say. I don't know. I'm not the definitive source of top NBA player rankings, but he's a pretty well known. I think he's a Hall of Famer. So. Yeah, that would be a pretty cool audience to go see.
So if I'm interested to go to this.
Yeah, good point.
Where do I go to sign up?
Oh, good question. The International Gaming Institute website has links to the conference. It is igi.unlv.edu. If you get lost, reach out to any of us.
We'll put a link
up. We can send you to the link. We can put the link directly to the conference website, to the Eventbrite registration page, all of that we can provide.
Awesome.
I love that. Well,
do we do the challenge?
It flew by. Yeah, we have to do the challenge. Bring it back.
So you know the deal. Who should come on? Who should you challenge in the future to bring on to the show?
Oh, I feel like I named at least 6 people
I
during
know.
this podcast.
I like the
did.
MIT one.
That would be pretty cool.
That would be way
if we're
cool.
being choosy.
Yeah, let's
right?
get all choosy on our first
Choosy.
pod back.
Great. And that
It's our
case,
pod.
You want Andy Block. Andy is
Nice.
such an interesting guy. So technically he went to Harvard, not MIT. Speaking of
Now
this
he's going to help us
competition,
with the
right?
Harvard of gaming.
So the Harvard of gaming. Really interesting guy. He played blackjack right while he was there getting his law degree. He will correct me if I'm getting any of the story wrong.
Beautiful, yeah.
And now he lives here in Las Vegas. He's a professional poker player for a while. He used to create games just like we do at our Center for Gaming Innovation. Really interesting guy, super nice guy, brilliant. He would put together during COVID. He put together trackers of different infection rates. He put together a tracker when there were. You remember when there were all sorts
What you
of,
do when you're bored and smart.
Oh yeah, when you're bored, right.
The world was shut down. What else is there?
When we had all those different issues with like stocking at different restaurants and grocery
Yeah.
stores, and stuff, he put together a tracker of the different Starbucks in the area, and so you could look up if you wanted a particular thing, you could look up which local Starbucks had it in stock.
How good is that? That's
That was
pretty
before
good.
the app kept track of all that. Yeah, so.
It's like, I just want my egg sandwich, man.
Anyway, Andy's really a lovely guy. He came to our last conference as well. He sat down with us at one of our big sessions. I sat down with him and James Holtzauer, who was in the middle of his Jeopardy run.
No way.
During the conference. Like, we couldn't have written this better.
Yeah,
And
right.
We reached out. We got super lucky. He was willing to come and sit down with me and with Andy. And it was such a great time because he's in the middle of this run. It's so interesting to talk about how his experience as a sports bettor, right? This is a professional gambler is about as big a risk-taking profession as you can be. Other than like what's his name? Was it Felix Baumgartner, the Red Bull guy?
That one I don't know. This is your area. Red Bull. Oh, the guy that jumped from space.
From space.
Yeah, that's a pretty big risk. I don't know his name.
Did I
But
get his last
sounds
name
right.
right? Felix, I'm
There you go.
99%
We're going
sure
with
is his
it.
first name. And to talk about how that helps with things like betting in Jeopardy, when you have to take risks
interesting.
on knowing the answers or knowing the questions when you get the answer. So
Things smart people come
about
up
that?
with. This question, I'm going to switch.
Okay. Go for it.
okay.
This was the gambling question. Tell us a gambling story. I'm going to switch it for you. I'm going to ask you what you think the next big innovation is in North America for gaming. What do you think the next big innovation technology that we're going to be receiving in the next couple years in gaming?
I'm going to stall and ask what the normal question is.
Oh, the normal question was give us a fun gambling story that you've had recently. Like maybe you went out, bet on a sports team.
Oh, okay.
But I flipped it, and I want to know what you think.
I told that story last time I was
Yeah.
on the podcast. Yeah.
So I'm swapping it.
Gonna
Okay.
mix it up
I'm
for
curious what you think the next big innovation that we receive.
Does it have to be the next big innovation,
No.
or can it be a just future, right?
Current,
I don't know if
yeah,
I can
that's fine.
predict the
Yeah.
first one, right? Like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
predicted that this year the revenues from the sports books in Nevada would break records from last year, and then the Will Hill app went down, and they were down by like 15% this year or something
Nuts.
like that.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
didn't pan out. So my prediction skills are not spectacular. When I was I'm totally stalling again. When I was a senior in college,
Yep.
I was majoring in statistics, and I wrote my senior thesis. I tried to create an algorithm to predict the results of horse races.
Okay.
And I'm now a professor at a public university, so clearly that didn't work very well. So my prediction skills, not amazing.
Horses are hard to predict.
Having placed all those disclaimers on my ability to predict the future.
Prognostication ability. Yeah, exactly.
I think the next big innovation is in blockchain. And it might be super sexy. It might be like a new game that's based in this space. It might be something that's tied to cryptocurrency, and especially with all those fluctuations, right? We have this innate gambling product that then is the underlying function of a game that might be a gambling game, or something totally unsexy, like just using blockchain to improve speed to market, for example, with our gaming control board or other control boards around the U.S. or around the world, where we're able to use faster, more streamlined functions to improve the gambling world in which we live, whether that's something like I said, speed to market for gambling games, or even means of improving how we do consumer protection.
You could even use
There you
it
have it. Yeah.
for like server-based gaming, taking your game on your phone and popping it onto a cabinet in a property. So that there's a lot of use cases for
That'd be cool. Yeah, I mean, I
crypto.
don't pretend to know all of it with the blockchain crypto stuff, but I do know it's coming.
Yeah.
So
So if you
that'd be
don't
pretty
know,
cool.
Now you know.
Now you know. Well, this has been fun.
This has been great.
As always, flies by. But thank you for joining us. Thank you for sharing all the things you're working on, what you're doing. Yeah.
My pleasure.
We're looking forward to the conference, May
23rd to 25th.
23 through 25, Las Vegas, igi.unlv.edu. Check it out. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you, guys.
Sounds great.
Appreciate it.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Cheers.